Hot Apostle. Help us build the kingdom. Like, share, and subscribe. Sermon on the Mount. We just read the first lines of the Sermon on the Mount, the beatitudes. And let me tell you, the Sermon on the Mount is profoundly challenging, and people have approached the Sermon on the Mount over the years in different ways. And one idea is that it is an impossible ethic that nobody can live, and that simply is given to us to humble us so that we recognize that we have to throw ourselves on the mercy of God. And I have to say that there's an element of truth in that, but I don't think Jesus was telling us all this and not expecting us to strive to live it. He's telling us that we must live the Sermon on the Mount, but that we can't do it on our own, that we need His grace to live the grace of the Sermon on the Mount. Not an impossible ideal, but a life in grace, a lifelong pursuit, a transformative wisdom, a wisdom that changes us from worldly people to godly people. And let me tell you something else about the Sermon on the Mount. Particularly, I want to talk about the Beatitudes this morning. But I recently read a book by a pagan philosopher named Marcus Aurelius. Some of you have heard of Marcus Aurelius and his book, The Meditations. And I was thinking about, when I was reading and praying about this sermon, I was thinking, so much of the Meditations is consistent with the Beatitudes. It's as if he discovered the Beatitudes by seeking wisdom. And, so one of them, he says, receive wealth or prosperity without arrogance and be ready to let it go. What is that but poverty of spirit? He says, if you know the right thing to do, but you're afraid to do it because of cowardice, what is that? You'll be persecuted for righteousness' sake. So this wisdom really is the path to happiness. Now, you won't get the Beatitudes necessarily on a marketing campaign by an ad company, will you? Not at all. They want quick and easy, something you can buy, and that'll make you happy. My brothers and sisters, we all want to be happy. It is Jesus that you seek when you dream of happiness. He is waiting for you when nothing else will satisfy you. He is the beauty to which you are so attracted. It is Him who provokes the thirst in you that will not let you settle for compromise. It is Jesus who urges you to shed the mask of a false life. It is He who reads your heart and knows your most genuine choices, the choices that you stifle. It is Jesus who stirs in you the desire to do something great with your life. It is Jesus who calls you to follow an ideal and refuses to let you be ground down by mediocrity. It is Jesus who gives you the courage to commit yourself humbly and patiently to improving yourself and society, to make the world more humane and more fraternal. That was John Paul II, not me, okay? So, many years ago, I read an article in the New York Times, back when there was such a thing, the newspaper, I read an article in the New York Times titled, "Blue is the New Black." It was about having the blues. And it explored why women in the Western world, in the materially prosperous world, were once the happiest people. Those self-reporting surveys, how happy are you? Once the happiest people had seen a sharp decline in happiness since the 1970s, even to the point of depression. And this was the paradox that the author held up. More choices, but less happiness. More career options, greater sexual freedom, easy divorce, more autonomy, and less joy. I did not agree with the author's conclusion. Her conclusion was that women and men must surrender happiness for choice. But I understood the dilemma. It raises a question for all of us. What if it turns out that happiness isn't the freedom of having lots of choices, but happiness is knowing the right way? True happiness is not found in endless options, but in truth. The world will try to reduce truth to an opinion or even a whim, but the truth is not reducible to an idea or a concept or a whim. The truth is a person. Jesus Christ is the way. He's the option. He is the truth. And He is life to the full. Today, the blues are gaining ground, not just with women in the materially prosperous West, but across the board. We see rising rates of fatigue and sleeplessness, anxiety, depression, even thoughts of self-harm. Why? Why? The world and the flesh tempt with choices, paths to happiness. They try to sell it, but they don't have it to sell. The world doesn't have it to give away. And far too many people, all of us, myself included, made in the image and likeness of God, have been given so many choices that we don't even know what happiness is. And more choices have led us farther away from it. So let me ask you, do you want to be happy? Or do you? Let's let a little word study. We're going to do a little word study, okay? I'm a word nerd a little bit, okay? From the Old English word hap, which simply means luck. Originally, a happy person was a person to whom some good fortune had happened, not somebody who cultivated an interior life. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about cultivating an interior life and the need for the capacity to sit in silence and to answer the great questions, to enter into the great questions, even through the path of boredom. At its root, happiness is not entering into the deep questions, but it's a passing condition shaped by external circumstances. Happenstance. Something just happens. Perhaps, maybe, maybe not. Hapless, a luckless person. A haphazard situation, right? You don't want your life to be haphazard, do you? No, you want your life to be governed by more. What you want, what I promise you, you want, is not simply happiness, but another kind of happiness. Beatitude. The beatitudes, right? A stable condition formed in your soul by truth. This shallow happiness reacts to what happens. The happiness of beatitude directs our lives. Happiness depends on external circumstances. Beatitude depends on what you are becoming. Happiness is fragile and evanescent. Beatitude is stable and endures. Happiness fades when suffering arrives. Beatitude can deepen in spite of suffering. Of course you want happiness. Yes, absolutely you want happiness, but you want a different kind of happiness. You want a deep and a stable happiness, not the happiness of luck or chance or haphazard turn of events. You want the happiness that endures even when your team loses, even when the markets fall, even when the diagnosis is serious, even when your heart breaks in disappointment, when the luck runs out. That kind of happiness has another name. What is it? Blessedness. Blessed are you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. The blessedness. Now we arrive, my brothers and sisters, back at the Mount of the Beatitudes. Jesus sits. His disciples come to him. He teaches them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean or pure of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they insult you, persecute you, and utter every kind of evil against you falsely because of me. Rejoice and be glad. This is not an impossible ethic. This is the beginning of the path to wisdom. Once upon a time, I read, I had this came up every 3 years. It comes up. Those of you that have been here with me for a little while, remember me just reading the whole thing. I just read the whole thing, word for word. And somebody thought I did a good job. They asked me to come do that. They wanted that sermon I gave as a speech for me to give to their group. And so I agreed to do it. I thought that's easy to prepare. But I thought then we're going to have questions and answers. So let me really study the Sermon on the Mount. And I really studied the Sermon on the Mount. I really dug in because this was a bunch of professionals. And they were going to be asking me questions. They were serious Catholics. They were going to be asking me questions about the Sermon on the Mount after I read it. So I studied, and I showed up and I read it. There's probably one word in the whole New Testament that I couldn't define. Somebody raises their hand and they said, Father Mike, what is meekness? And I thought of all the words. I'm afraid I didn't have an answer. And happily, I didn't make one up either. I just accepted my humility. But I'll never forget what meekness is again. It's not mousiness. It's not skittishness. It's not weakness. It has the unfortunate problem of rhyming with weakness. But no, meekness is power, restrained by reason. Meekness is the ability to act, but it does not act out passionately. It doesn't fly off the handle. It's not outbursts. No, it is reasoned, disciplined, strong, and patient. Jesus is meek when he's being beaten for our sins. He's strong and powerful. My brothers and sisters, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are the poor in spirit, not to be destitute, not biting poverty of addiction or dependence, but that poverty that avoids being enslaved by things, interior detachment from possessions and power, a radical dependence on God, a humility before God, recognizing that everything comes from his hand, and a trust in divine providence. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And what do you mourn? What should you mourn for the blessedness of God? You must mourn your own sin. You must mourn the sins of the world. It must cause you heartbreak to recognize your weakness, and you must cling to God for his mercy and strength, and on and on and on. I challenge you, I encourage you to study the Sermon on the Mount, to read the whole thing. I'm tempted to read the whole thing to you again, but I'm going to trust you to read the whole thing yourself, right? Read the whole thing in one sitting and trust that it is not an impossible ideal, but it is a call to dependence on grace. And it is by grace that you will know the beatitude, that happiness of every circumstance in life that you were made for.